What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan, and today's episode, we've got a lot to talk about, including some news from the Washington Commanders, a new signing for them, plus a new assistant coach or analyst, I guess you could say as well, which was announced this week. We're also going to talk about the Commanders' local pro day that happened this past Tuesday, where we had prospects from all over the DMV area, plus, of course, some other ones as well, compete in a local pro day pretty much for the Washington Commanders and have a workout there. Then I'm going to go over my top positions of need. We're going to go through a ranking 1 through 5 of my top positions of need for the Washington Commanders and what they should address in the NFL draft. And then we'll wrap things up, of course, with a weekly mock draft. Today's going to be a good episode, so let's just jump right into it. We'll start with Wes Welker and Josh Johnson. You've probably heard by now, but Washington is bringing in a new personnel analyst, and that is longtime NFL wide receiver Wes Welker. Welker has been the wide receiver coach for the Miami Dolphins for the last 3 seasons. He was brought in with Mike McDaniel, and he's been the wide receiver coach there. He also had some time in San Francisco when Deebo Samuel was in San Francisco as well. So a little bit of a reunion there. Wes Welker was an assistant wide receivers coach in San Francisco and was brought over when Mike McDaniel left from being the passing game coordinator in San Francisco to now being the head coach in Miami. Welker went with him and became the wide receiver coach in Miami. So he's going to be joining Washington staff as a personnel analyst. Looking forward to see what he can do. I would assume he's more of just there in like a mentoring role. As a wide receiver coach in Miami, I was not really impressed with him and the wide receivers in Miami over the last few years based on the expectations that they had. But, I mean, Welker as a kind of a personnel analyst just to, mentor these young wide receivers that Washington has in their receiver room right now, he could help out guys like Luke McCaffrey, the 2024 third-round pick out of Rice, who's going to be entering his second season. I think McCaffrey kind of had a down year compared to what people were expecting from him this past season, but maybe he could be in for a breakout here in year 2. And he could also potentially help out a rookie if Washington were to draft one, because it definitely seems like they're in the market to draft a wide receiver at some point in the 2024 NFL draft, which is only a week and a half away, which is pretty crazy to say. So Wes Welker being brought in as a personnel analyst. As far as the other signing, Josh Johnson is back in Washington. Johnson had a stint in Washington back in 2019, I want to say, where he was the starting quarterback for a couple of games. I believe he won a game as the starting quarterback for Washington Redskins, I believe at the time, 2019. I believe that would be the Washington Redskins. So Josh Johnson back in Washington for a second time, of course. Most famous journeyman quarterback, you could say, in the NFL is Josh Johnson right now. This is his probably 15th different stint on a team since like 2010, which is just crazy to say. He's still sticking around the league here. But the quarterback room now looks like this for the Commanders. You've got Jayden Daniels, of course, as your starting quarterback. Marcus Mariota is going to be your backup quarterback. Sam Hartman is still, I believe, on the roster as well. So Sam Hartman will be out there in training camp, and Josh Johnson as well will be the 4th quarterback. So notable name missing is Jeff Driscoll, who spent some time as Washington's backup quarterback last season while Marcus Mariota was recovering from an injury. So that is one name that's missing. And then Trace McSorley spent some time in Washington as well last season during the preseason, who's not back here as well. He's now, I believe, the quarterback's coach at Penn State. So assistant quarterback's coach at Penn State. So Josh Johnson signing with the Washington Commanders. I believe it's just a 1-year deal. We'll see if Johnson ultimately makes it to the final roster in August or September, which I would be surprised if he does. I think Sam Hartman is kind of going to be cut out to be QB3 right now, if I had to make a prediction. But Josh Johnson, just bringing in a 4th arm. Washington last offseason, going in the training camp, they had 4 arms: Daniels, Mariota, Driscoll, and Hartman. So they want to have 4 quarterbacks out there to work out in the preseason, and Josh Johnson is the 4th one this year for Washington and Dan Quinn's crew. So Wes Welker joining as a personnel analyst, and Josh Johnson joining as a quarterback, as a backup quarterback. So that is the news from the week. Some other news. The Commanders hosted their local pro day with prospects. It included about 30 prospects, I would say. Now, looking at the list, it's about 25, 30 prospects that competed in this local pro day for Washington. The only quarterback that was there was Garrett Green, the quarterback out of West Virginia. He's from Tallahassee, Florida. Went to West Virginia, so he's competing in this local pro day. Some other notable names that were on this list: wide receiver Ty Felton out of Maryland. I think this Washington team really loves Ty Felton. They met with him at the Senior Bowl when he was there. He's a local kid. He went to Stonebridge High School in Northern Virginia, pretty much about 10 minutes away. He went to high school 5-10 minutes away from the Commanders' current practice facility. So it is, I mean, he's very close. He's got some Nova roots. For him, he also went to Maryland and had a breakout season there, was the nation's leading receiver in receiving yards for a good portion of this season, of this past college football season. So Ty Felton is someone that stood out to me, and I've talked about him multiple times on this podcast, but he's a great deep route runner. He's got great route running skills. He's fast. I love what I've seen out of Ty Felton. He's also a really cool guy because I got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl as well. He's someone that stood out to me. Dante Thornton out of Tennessee. He's from Baltimore, Maryland. So he was at this local pro day as well. That's a wide receiver out of Maryland. Chris Tyree out of UVA was here. Jordan Moore out of Duke. Just some of the names wide receiver wise that were here. There was only 3 offensive linemen, which is kind of notable. I know Washington and the offensive line class is not that deep, and there's not a lot of players from this area, but only 3 offensive linemen were here. A couple of cornerbacks, Garrett Hollis and Mike Reed. Hollis out of West Virginia, Mike Reed out of South Dakota, but he's from Owing Mills, Maryland. Safety position is what was really interesting to me. 3 very good safeties in terms of highly regarded in this class that were here at the Commanders local pro day. One of them being Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. He's a guy from Columbia, Maryland, went to Penn State. Winston is someone who was probably going to be the top safety in this class he was a top safety in this class going into this season, but then he kind of had a down year. His season got cut short due to a season-ending injury, and he's kind of fallen off the boards a little bit. But if he can return to his 2023 form, one of the highest graded safeties on Pro Football Focus, I think he could definitely be a star in this league. And he's someone that I would keep an eye on if Washington were to trade back in the first round and pick maybe in that 40 to 50 range. Kevin Winston Jr. could be a guy Washington goes after and selects in that early second round range. So Kevin Winston Jr. is someone I think Washington really likes. Dante Trader out of UMD is someone as well. He's from Delaware, Del Mar, Delaware. But Dante Trader is someone who's getting late day 2, maybe early day 3 hype right now, which is interesting to see. And Jonas Sanker out of UVA. He's from the Charlottesville area, so he's from the UVA area. But Sanker is someone who was at the Senior Bowl, someone who I think has performed really well in this pre-draft process. He tested pretty well as well at the Combine. So Sanker is someone I think Washington could look into as being a selection late on day 2, maybe early on day 3 as well. So the safeties were really interesting to me. There's 3 guys I think Washington could be after. As far as the linebackers, Eugene Asante, he's from Auburn, but he, again, grew up in Alexandria, so that's what the local pro day is about. You got to have some connection to the DMV area or one of the surrounding states at this point. But Eugene Asante is a linebacker. I'm going to talk about it more in my positions of need rankings in a second, but linebacker is something I think Washington could sneakily go after in this draft and maybe draft another one. So Eugene Asante is someone I'd keep an eye on. They had about 4 other linebackers as well, and then they had a couple of defensive ends and defensive linemen. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland is another one that's been getting some hype. A kicker, punter, long snapper as well. So a lot of guys from West Virginia, a lot of guys from UMD, a lot of guys from UVA as well were at this local pro day for the Washington Commanders. But that was the list, about 25, 30. They do it every year. So that was about the list, though, for the pro day that happened last Tuesday. So, again, something to keep an eye on. Washington has tended to draft about 1 guy from this area or around this area that has some connection to this area, I feel like, every year. So I would keep an eye on that list. I think probably the most likely to get drafted. Look at names like Ty Felton or Kevin Winston, or maybe even a guy like Eugene Asante that I think Washington could go after. So that was the news for the Commanders' local pro day. But now that we get the news out of the way, I want to talk about my positions of need rankings, because this has been a big question for Washington. When I post a mock draft online, I get a lot of heat about, oh, you didn't address, let's just say, for example, wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. What are we doing? Who's Jane Daniels going to throw to? You didn't address edge rusher. You didn't address offensive. Oh, why are you drafting offensive linemen? So I wanted to break down my positions of need rankings. We'll start from the top. I think the number one position of need right now that Washington needs to address in the 2025 NFL draft is edge rusher. We look at the depth chart of what Washington's edge rusher room kind of looks like. You've got Dorrance Armstrong returning. He's on a multi-year deal. Clelin Ferrell signed to a 1-year deal. Dietrich Wise was a new name. Same with Jacob Martin. So those are two guys right now that we don't really know what they're going to bring. Both of them are about 30 years old. What are they going to bring to this Washington team? I don't know how much production that either of them will bring as well. We've also got Javonte Jean-Baptiste, a 7th-rounder from last year, who I really liked watching. I thought he was kind of battled injury throughout last season, but Jean-Baptiste was someone that I think could definitely have a bigger year in terms of production. And at some points last season, he was the starter on the edge. So he's got a lot of experience just in his rookie season, especially for a 7th-rounder. He's impressed me a lot. And Andre Jones Jr., who I think will be battling for a roster spot as well currently. And then Washington also has someone from the International Pathways program at the edge rusher position as well. So Andre Jones is probably going to be battling for a spot. But this pass rushing room, not good. It's definitely bottom 10 in my opinion. Not a lot of names that kind of impress me, or like I'm looking at him saying, oh god, this guy's going to make a huge impact this season. I know there was some rumors about trading for a guy like Trey Hendrickson or another pass rusher. Washington, as of right now, doesn't look like that's going to happen. So they made a move for Laremy Tunsil, spent a lot of draft capital on him. So I would be surprised if they spend a lot of draft capital to bring in another superstar. But Clelin Ferrell and Dorrance Armstrong as the 2 starters are okay, but not anything crazy. So I think Washington definitely needs to address the edge rusher position early on, probably in their first 2 picks. Do I think that's going to happen? 100%. I trust Adam Peters. I trust the guys in the front office, Lance Newmark, who's still there. So those guys, I trust them to make a selection, make the right selection, and know what the weaknesses of this roster are. They got embarrassed in the NFC Championship game on defense. They couldn't get any pressure on Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, that offense put up 55 points at the end of the day. So I think edge rusher is definitely a position of need. Also, not just a pass rusher, but someone who can stop the run on the edge. That's why I've looked at guys in the past like Femi Oladipo, Josiah Stewart, those guys that are very good run stoppers in this draft class on the edge that I think Washington could look into maybe with their 2nd or 3rd pick in this draft. So edge rusher would be the first position of need for me. My second position of need, well, I think edge rusher is actually the kind of the consensus number 1 position of need for a lot of people. But from here on out, 2 through 5, I think a lot of people have it in of many different orders. So number 2 for me, though, is outside cornerback. I think Washington needs some more depth at the cornerback position. I like what they've got going on the inside, bringing back Noah Igbinoghene for another season. He was a very good nickel corner last year. Mikey Sanders still, if you do end up bringing in an outside cornerback, he can move inside as well. And Sanders still can play the inside, which he played at Michigan and thrived at the nickel position at Michigan. Now, I think the plan right now is to keep Mike Sanders still on the outside, but we'll have to wait and see what Washington does in this draft. Do they address the outside cornerback position? Because I like Marshawn Lattimore, right? Marshawn Lattimore, I think it's too early to call. I know he struggled last season, but I think in my opinion, it's just too early to say, oh, we lost that trade. I would rather give him this season as well, a full 18 games where he's fully healthy coming into the year. So before I make a big judgment on him. But Marshawn Lattimore, someone that I think could definitely still be that cornerback 1 and lockdown corner for this team. Jonathan Jones was someone Washington brought in. Jones, I wonder if he moves inside as well because he's played both outside and inside. I don't know. I don't really trust anyone really beyond this point for Washington. The cornerback room is not looking great. Bobby Price, Kevin Seymour, Alan George, like beyond this, the cornerback room is not looking good. So I would probably at some point suggest Washington to draft a corner because look, what they keep 5 cornerbacks maybe: Lattimore, Sandra Still, Jonathan Jones, Igbenogany. Who's the fifth? Who's the fifth? So that is kind of where I'm at right now for Washington. So I think they definitely need to address a cornerback, and more specifically outside cornerback, because in my opinion, you've already got 2 corners that can play the slot corner position really well. So in both Sanders Still and Igbenogany. So I would expect them to address outside corner at some point in this draft. Number 3, and this is becoming a very popular one recently, I think is running back. You look at the room right now: Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. That's fine. Robinson's entering the last year of his deal. All right, Eckler, or I believe, is it his third year or fourth year? I believe this is his 4th year. Let me double check. Yeah, he's entering the last year of his deal, and Austin Eckler as well, entering the last year of his 2-year deal. Beyond that, Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez are both fine as your 3 and 4, but I really think Washington needs to add some electricity to this room. I'm looking at guys, of course, like Jaden Blue, maybe even a guy like Kyle Mullings, who could be someone who just brings electricity and brings explosion to this running back room that I think has really lacked that explosion for quite some time. Eckler and Robinson were great and all, but Eckler's fumbling issues towards the end, Robinson, just his lack of just explosion, in my opinion, towards the end of the season as well, was really concerning. I mean, we look at Robinson's stats, right? The team just could not run the ball towards the end of the season, to be fair. But for looking at Robinson in the playoffs, beyond the Detroit game, 11 carries for 36 yards, 10 carries for 16 yards. Dallas game, 5 carries for 10 yards, 10 carries for 24 yards against Philly in that second matchup. At times, it's just not good. It's just not good from Brian Robinson. Not good enough. So I would expect them to maybe address running back at some point in this draft. I'd be kind of shocked if they don't, actually, because they need to get younger at the position, and knowing Adam Peters and the analytics, Brandon Sosna, and all that, all those people there use, I would think they would plan ahead for something like this, knowing that Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler are going to be 2 free agents at the end of the season. I don't think you bring either of them back. I just don't think, and you always want a running back on that rookie deal, because paying for running backs, unless they are at Saquon Barkley's caliber or I don't know who else, Josh Jacobs' caliber, right? Which Brian Robinson is not, guys. He's not Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs' caliber. It's not worth paying for running backs, in my opinion. So I would move on from both of them at the end of this season. That's why running back would be my 3rd biggest need for Washington at this time. The 4th biggest need would be wide receiver. All right. It would be wide receiver. Yes, I know. We trade for Deebo Samuel. We signed Michael Gallup. Guys, come on now. We're not Michael Gallup. Like, relax. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Michael Gallup, Luke McCaffrey, KJ Osborne are right now, your 6 receivers that are probably going to make this team. But if there is an addition, right, and I think there should be at some point, just to bring in somebody new, Terry McLaurin, great number 1. Great number 1. Deebo Samuel, probably a good number 2, but he's getting older. Don't know how much down the field he can bring you. All right. I don't know how many big plays down the field he can bring you at this stage. Now, short yardage wise, he'd be great, but I don't know how much down the field he can bring you. Noah Brown, great year last year, but can he keep it up? Can he keep it up? And I'm not putting all my chips in on Noah Brown right now. So I've got questions about him. Michael Gallup, don't know if he makes the roster, to be fair. I don't know, because Gallup's coming off retirement, right? He unretired. He came now and is now a Washington Commander. Don't know if he's making the roster. Luke McCaffrey will most likely make the roster. I'm hoping we get a breakout year from him, but again, don't know. A big question mark there. And then the rest of the guys like KJ Osborne, Chris Moore, come on now. Like the potential roster makers, like those guys are potentially on the final roster or not. If they are, they're not making a big impact. They're probably going to be healthy and active. on game days. Like this unit, I think, needs at least one more guy, and drafting someone at some point in this class would be great for Washington. So wide receiver would be towards the top of my list as well. And then my final position of need, and this might be a shocker to some people because I think people need to talk about this more. It would be linebacker. I think Washington's duo of Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu is awesome. It is amazing. All right, Louvu's going to be on this team for years to come. All right, second team All-Pro for both of these guys. Bobby Wagner, or second team All-Pro for Bobby Wagner. Both of these guys, I think, were in the Pro Bowl too. Okay, something like that. But Bobby Wagner, all right, he's probably in his last year. I signed another one-year deal. I would assume he's in his last year. I mean, the guy is an ageless wonder at this point, but you've got to have some sort of plan. All right. I'm not saying you got to spend a top 3-round pick on a linebacker. You can spend another one on day 3, early on day 3. You've got Jordan McGee, all right, in the wings to take up Bobby Wagner's role, but McGee was hurt for a majority of last season. That is another big question mark on this team. There's a lot of young guys that are depth pieces for this team, and I'm just not sure what they're going to bring yet. So Jordan McGee, a big question for me. I don't know. I mean, he had he played one snap in week 1, had an injury that put him out for most of the season, and then came in. He did not really play that well in the time that he was on the field for, and he really just battled injury constantly throughout the season. So I think linebacker is a position of need. Again, it's not towards the top of the positions of needs right now for Washington. I have it at number 5, but it's something Washington and Adam Peters and those guys in the front office, I think, will have to start talking about. How are we going to address that post Bobby Wagner? Because the impact that Bobby Wagner brings, it's going to be hard to replicate. It's going to be hard to replicate. So those are my 5 positions of needs for the Washington Commanders. Knowing those 5 positions of needs, let's jump into a mock draft here on Keeping Up with the Commanders. It's weekly mock draft time. All right, Washington pick number 29. We're going through 7 rounds. We'll start at the top. Looks like Cam Ward, a few other guys. First 10 picks, no surprises. Jahad Campbell to the Bears at number 10. But through the first 10 picks, really no surprises. Let's go down to 20. All right, we're now at 20. Donovan Ezeraku is off the board. Shamar Stewart. A lot of edge rushers are off the board. I would say that is worth noting. Matthew Golden is off the board. That's someone I would look into. There are some corners, I think, that are on the board still. Will Johnson's the only one that has been taken so far. So there are some corners on the board. I don't think I'm going to be trading up in this one. So I'm going to go down to 29 and see who's on the board. Looks like final few picks here in the first round. 26 was Tyler Booker. 27 was Walter Nolan. And 28 was Malachi Starks. So on the board here at 29, the top names, Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri, James Pierce, edge rusher out of Tennessee. Those are probably the 2 most popular picks right now. Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman, I'd kind of put him at center or guard out of NDSU. Had a great Senior Bowl. He's on the board right now. Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State, mentioned him. Nick Scarton out of Texas A&M is on the board. Benjamin Morrison is a guy I'm looking at 37. He's ranked number 37 on the big board. He's on the board. Xavier Watts is also on the board. I think I'm going to trade down here. I like some of these names kind of in this 30 to 40 range. We've got the Browns interested at 33. I think I'm going to trade to the 33rd pick. Probably get 104, I think would make sense. I don't think you're getting a 3rd round pick just by trading down 4 spots. But 104, maybe throw in like 200 as well. All right, 104 and 200. We're going to offer this trade. Trading down 4 spots for 104 and 200. Here we go. So 4 more picks off the board. I think this gives us a good spot. James Pierce was taken. Nick Scarton was taken. Gray Zabel was taken. We're on the board here at number 33. Kevin Winston and Luther Burden are still here. Benjamin Morrison is calling my name, guys. All right, Benjamin Morrison is someone that I really love. You look at his stats in 2024. Yes, maybe the man coverage grade was down, but 2023 was first-round material from Benjamin Morrison. He's coming off a hip injury, which is slightly concerning, but I'm talking about how outside corner is definitely a need for Washington. Benjamin Morrison can be that outside corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. I have my trust in a guy like Morrison. Jaden Higgins is someone that I would be interested in as well. Had an incredible year last year for Iowa State. 90.5 receiving grade, 58.3 contested catch rate. He is, I believe, my wide receiver 3 in this class right now. So Higgins is someone that I would keep an eye on maybe. I would think I would pick Higgins over Luther Burden. I have a higher grade on Higgins. I mean, I talked about wide receiver being a need, number 4. So Jane Higgins could be on the board here. In terms of other positions of need, Trey Amos, because someone who's a great man coverage corner. This might be the one, actually. Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. 13 forced incompletions last season. All right. I mean, the Trey Amos might be the one. He might be the one. So I'm going to go with Trey Amos just because he doesn't have that injury history like Benjamin Morrison does. I still like him, though. He's 6'1", 190 pounds. He is a little bit on the older side at 23, but I'm going to go Trey Amos here at pick number 33 for the Washington Commanders. This takes us down to pick number 61. I'm going to stop it here around 50. Looks like some guys are off the board. Jaden Higgins just left. Ray Thomas. Yeah, I'm just going to go down to 61 here and see what we got. Benjamin Morrison still on the board here. Okay, at 61. We already went corner, so I'm not going him. Kevin Winston would be interesting just because I think that could be a pick Washington actually makes. This is the pick right here. Travion Henderson at pick number 61. The explosion, you look at the elusiveness rating, 108.9, 90-plus grade each of the last 2 seasons, 90-plus gap grade each of the last 2 seasons for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Travion Henderson, welcome to the Washington Commanders. That gets rid of the running back need that I had. Next pick isn't until number 104, so we'll see if we can trade up here with Green Bay. Let's see. We went corner. We went running back. Edge rusher. Edge rusher is a need right here. I don't think the guy that I want is off the board yet. Yeah, I don't think he is. So we're going to trade up with Green Bay. We're going to trade up 104 to 87. It is some math here. 17 spots. We'll give him 200. I don't know. Do you think with 200? Yeah, 200. And yeah, we're going to have to wait a little bit. My guy's still here at 93. Maybe trading up 11 spots. Will you do it for 200? No. Yeah, okay. So we'll go. All right. We'll go 104 and 128 for 93 and 248. I'm trying to get a good trade in with New Orleans. This was Washington's original pick in the 3rd round, actually. We're going to offer this trade 93 and 248 for 104 and 128. We're going to offer this trade. We're on the board. We already went cornerback and running back. The guy I want, is he still on the board? Femi Oladipo would be the pick here. In my opinion, I think Femi Oladipo would be the pick. But Mukuba and Kyle Williams, I talked about wide receivers. I feel like with Debo, the need for Kyle Williams kind of goes down a little bit just because of the screen games. He'd be a great De'Ami Brown replacement, just the production-wise. Cam Williams, if you want to tackle, I don't really think so. Savion Williams, maybe. His drop rate was pretty high, but I mean, his contested catch rate, which is insane last year at 88.9%. I think we go with Femi Oladipo. This is a guy that I love. He's a project. I talked about him before. A project edge rusher, project pass rusher. He's someone that I think, I mean, he's only played pass rusher for about 10 games. He switched from off-ball linebacker, and you look at, the Micah Parsons and that kind of career trajectory in terms of in college, he was an off-ball linebacker, switched more of a pass rusher, and you've seen what he's been able to do in Dallas. I think Femi Oladipo, Dan Quinn could see some Micah Parsons in him in terms of switching and having those instincts as an off-ball linebacker to now being an edge rusher. And you look at his run stop rate, 9.3%, which is in the 90th plus percentile, which is huge. It is huge. So I'm going to go Femi Oladipo here at pick number 93. According to the PFF Big Board, this is going to be a little bit of a reach, but I don't think it really matters. So as this thing keeps on simming, I'm just going to go all the way down to 200. Actually, we'll see if we can trade up a little bit once we get down to like 180. But we've got Trey Amos, Travion Henderson, and Femi Oladipo as of now. All right, we're going to see if we can trade up in the 6th round a little bit just to get rid of some of these picks. We'll go 200 and 205 for 177 to the Bills. So we get 177 while on the board. Ty Felton. I don't think we did not go wide receiver yet, but let's just go Ty Felton. He's on the board here, and I told him about we need a wide receiver, just another wide receiver, and Ty Felton could be someone that Washington goes after. He was at the Senior Bowl. Washington met with him there. He was also at the local pro day just last week. So Ty Felton out of Maryland will be the pick here early on in the 6th round. We've got 2 picks left, 245 and 248, 2 7th rounders. We're just going to pick at both of them. No need to move up here in the 7th round or anything. But 2 of the last picks in the draft, I really like how this draft class is going so far. We've got 2 7th rounders here. We already went running back, wide receiver. Jalen Walker is someone that I'm interested in look at that pass rush grade. Which linebacker had the highest pass rush grade last season in the NFL? That was Bobby Wagner. All right. And you look at just these grades from Jalen Walker, someone who, beyond the missed tackle rate, I think I'm getting some Bobby Wagner vibes, right? Just because of how much he rushed the passer at Indiana this last season. 64 pass rushing snaps at Indiana. All right. And this is awesome. So I think I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. I think the coverage needs some work. The coverage stuff needs some work, but 94.1 grade against Purdue. We're going Jalen Walker at pick number 245, the linebacker, which leaves us the only position we haven't addressed is we've addressed all of them. So all of my positions of needs we've addressed in the first 5 picks. So then we can kind of go best player available. Just gonna look around. Tight end, nothing really. Maybe we go offensive line. Is there someone on the offensive line? Carson Vincent, maybe. Vincent's someone. He's got a big frame, 6'6", 305. But yeah, he had a solid Senior Bowl as well. Maybe as a project offensive lineman, could potentially make the roster. I think I'm gonna go Vincent here. Yeah, or Clay Webb. Clay Webb too was an interesting one. Clay Webb. I think I'm gonna go offensive line because I feel like you can never have too many good offensive linemen. Garrett Dellinger. Yeah, we're gonna go Carson Vincent out of Alabama A&M as a project guy, could potentially play tackle down to the stretch. We're going Carson Vincent. So that wraps up our draft class here. Our weekly mock draft. We trade the 29th overall pick to Cleveland for 33, 104, and 200. Draft Trey Amos with that pick. Then we get Travion Henderson in the 2nd round. He falls to us at 61. That is a massive pick in my opinion. We trade up into the 3rd round, 11 spots. We traded 493 and 248, and we give up 104 and 128. We draft Femi Oladipo with that pick. Ty Felton in the 6th round, and then trade up for Ty Felton in the 6th round with 2 other 6th round picks, and then in the 7th round, Jalen Walker and Carson Vincent, 2 guys who could potentially be project guys, depth pieces. So that is a great draft class in my opinion. I'd be ecstatic for that draft class. So yeah, that'll pretty much do it though on this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Next week, might have to give my 32 pick team mock draft next week. So that'll be an interesting one. Gotta start cooking that one up. But yeah, we are 1.5 weeks away from the NFL draft. The content schedule moving forward. Again, we've got the mock draft full 1st round next Monday. I've done that every Monday pretty much throughout this entire podcast career. The Monday before the draft, I give my entire 1st round of what I think the draft will look like. And then Thursday night, the pod on what Washington does on night 1 will come out, and then one out for every single day after that. So that'll do it for today's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I've been your host, Mason Kenahan. See you guys in the next one. Peace.